You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Lohman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Lohman.
Hey everybody, welcome to the House of Sunny podcast. Doug and I are
on location.
We're together on location.
Finally. Reunited at last.
Yep. We have this perfectly symmetrical tree behind us. Crazy. We saw that Tucker was in Brazil and we came here. And so here we are.
Of course. We're groupies.
Actually, last week, somebody said it was super annoying that I had a background and Doug didn't. It caused like a cognitive, I don't know, like a problem.
That was just that guy has cognitive problems. I know who that guy is. And I saw that you suggested that you blur out my face.
Yeah. I just said, well, we'll just blur
it. Which is
Doug.
fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. People would like that. No, I'm the one that made you put your face on here in the first place. You never wanted to. Right?
I just wanted to be a voice.
Yeah.
I don't mind being a brain in a jar type guy.
Right. So today, everybody, we're going to talk about the Supreme Court ruling about Roe v. Wade. I don't really think there's much other news. There probably is, but we don't know about it. Funny how Ukraine just dropped off the headlines.
What about, Ukraine, COVID?
COVID? What's going on with COVID? I don't know. Monkeypox?
What's COVID?
COVID's gone. Monkeypox is in.
Okay.
I don't really know what's going on with disease and destruction, but we can talk about abortion. I have skirted around this issue in the past because I feel like I can sort of get the arguments on both sides, and I don't really have a fixed opinion about it. I do in certain aspects of it. I don't know that that's the important thing to discuss about this decision, because to me, this decision and the other decisions that have come out in rapid fire, these are why we have these originalists on the Supreme Court. This is what people on the right pushed for, people who would actually adhere to the Constitution and not make law from the bench. This is what we wanted. And so here we have a ruling, a series of rulings with this one and the coach praying and the school choice and the guns. All four of those came out in the last week. And they're all showing that this new court is going to be focused on what their job is supposed to be. Like, their actual job is just to say, is this the law? Is this constitutional? That's it. They're not supposed to do anything else. They're not supposed to be a cultural force. And if you want a law passed, you got to pass a freaking law. Or you want the Constitution to say something, you've got to amend the Constitution. The problem is the people of the United States have not wanted laws legalizing abortion federally. I think that's the problem, right? I don't know. I mean, they've had decades since Roe v. Wade to pass a law kind of solidifying that if they wanted to, or an amendment. Right now, they have a super majority, the Dems, and that's their big issue. Why don't they do something? You know?
They don't. Well, I don't know if they have a supermajority. I mean,
they have the House, they have the Senate, they have.
But that's not. Well, I think supermajority is like you can get 60 votes to overcome the filibuster or whatever. But
okay.
The fact that I think there's a couple of levels of this. One is the debate itself, and we can get into that a little bit. But I agree with
the
you.
Debate
it's kind of minor.
About abortion itself.
No, like what is like my take? Like, what do I think it should be, and that kind of thing. But
right.
Your point and where I'm at with it too is, although I have my own take, it's so complicated, and this is so controversial, and it's been debated. The fact that it's debated and that everyone can debate this endlessly means that it needs to be dealt with at the states. You cannot have a one-size-fits-all recipe with a topic like this, where one side saying you're killing a baby, you're murdering, and another side is saying no,
you're taking away a woman's rights.
And so
they're over her own her autonomy over her body, and
the Supreme Court, by the way, didn't decide that question,
Right.
said we should not be deciding this question. It's not up to the federal court and 9 people to make this decision. It's
Right.
up to the people of the country. And therefore they left it back to the states. And the most frustrating thing to me about this is the idiots on all sides of, or not all sides, but mostly on the left, saying they've stripped women's rights and blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. They said we don't have the court can't make this determination. The states must make this determination, which is precisely consistent with the founding principles of the country, which is that each state has to come up with these laws. And some states are going to be more. Northern Ireland, the rule is 12 weeks. In the UK or in England, I think it's like 24 weeks. In California, I'm sure it'll be, practically, when the baby's on the table, you can kill it.
It's
and then
actually
in
the
other
age of
states,
35 in California. So they can kill you until you're 35.
Yeah, right. Well, if you're a conservative, they can abort you at any age.
Right.
So, but
It's
my
just a
point is
legalized abortion.
that it's just really, no matter what my take is, there is, and I'm sorry, however strongly you feel about this, there is no universal answer to this. There just isn't, because I've argued with the smartest people in the world, medical people, friends. I have my own thoughts about what it should be. And no matter what, wherever I come down on it, wherever you come down on it, you're going to get millions of people that disagree with you and they will fight to the death. They will never change their mind. And when you have that sort of a situation, that's why we have decentralized government. You don't have one size fits all, because that's what causes civil wars and revolutions. If the federal government says you're all going to do this, you're going to have a big problem. So I was glad the court did that, and I think they should do more of that.
Yes, I agree with that completely. And there are people out there who think that I don't know why they can't wrap their head around this idea that you don't get to decide for everybody. And that, especially an issue, you said something, you said an issue this difficult, where there's this much disagreement, where the argument is endless, where people are really passionate about it, that you can't do that federally. And that's a really important point, I think. Why not? Why can't you do it federally? And I think the reason is, in reality, with human psychology, it won't work. You can't force people to accept something that they find so immoral. You can't do it. You're going to end up with, fighting, actual physical violence.
And you have.
In a republic, the reason why we're set up the way we are is so people can make different decisions, and that, locally you have a lot more control than you do in a federal situation with 300 million people. And back at the founding, it was even, they were only just a few million people, and they still felt like that was too big, and you needed to go local where you could actually be a part of your own government or influence your own government. So it's really important not to get like all pie in the sky utopia rationalistic about this. It is not, you can't just on paper go, here's the ideal, and therefore federally it ought to be a law, and we're just going to force people to do the ideal, even if you're right. I think, let's just take slavery for a second. And this is this is the issue everyone brings up. Well, but we went in and we freed the slaves because slavery was really wrong. And it is really wrong. And there's no question that slavery is wrong. Everyone fucking agrees with that. But was it worth a civil war, and was it worth 600,000 dead? That slavery of a couple million people was wrong. Was it worth 600,000 dead? I don't even know if it's a couple million. I'm pulling that number out of my butt. But you know what I'm saying? Could there have been another way? Could there have been another way to more slowly, but to get rid of slavery? Could the North have cleaned up their own act really well and created safe havens? And then people could have gone in and kidnapped slaves and brought them to freedom. And, you could have this whole movement to just free the slaves. in a way that wouldn't cause a civil war. Already it was illegal to bring slaves to the country. So this was on its way out. I feel like people just they think they can just go up on high and tell people what to do and it's going to work out because it's the right thing. But people don't think it's the right thing. And so they're going to fight you, and they're going to fight within their situation. And frankly, they kind of have a right to. People have a right to self-government. And if you don't like it, it's kind of tough.
Well, just not to go down the rabbit hole, but the Civil War in particular, really there was no argument really about slavery in the southern states. Slavery was still legal in the southern states and remained legal. And
I thought you couldn't import slaves.
But that wasn't the argument.
Slavery was legal, but you couldn't get.
They weren't going to. Lincoln wasn't going to change. No one in the North was going to change the laws about slavery. It was more about the expansion of slavery and the legality of slavery into the territories and stuff. And so, anyways, that's a whole rabbit hole.
Probably do a show on that in and of itself.
But
I don't know much about it. But
the point of the founding was there are all these sovereign states. They're actually sovereign nations, and the federal government has some enumerated powers. They're supposed to go off and do those few things like immigration. They can make treaties and do a few other things. And that was it. And other than that, remember the states at the founding, right? We have a concept called separation of church and state. Well, that's true at the federal level. The Congress can't make laws enshrining, a state national religion, but states can, and they did. Many states at the founding had state religion and religious tests. Massachusetts had a state religion and religious test.
Is there anything states can't do though? Like freedom of speech?
Because states have their own constitution.
But what if a state put up a constitution tomorrow that said, we're going to have slaves and you can't speak and we're going to take all your guns? What if they did that tomorrow? Like, would it be right to allow the federal government to let them do that?
Well, two things. One, in today's context, because of this idea of incorporation is the idea that the Bill of Rights applies to all the states. It wouldn't work practically, but in principle, I think it should. In other words, if a state said, this is what we want our laws to be, that's what their laws should be. Now, the other states could say, well, we don't want you as part of the union.
We don't want
anymore,
you in the union.
And we're kicking you out of the union because, we don't want North Korea in the union either. We don't want China in our union. If a country
you think a state should be allowed to do what they want and devolve into a dictatorship like California. California can become North Korea if it wants, but the other states can say, we don't really like you and we don't want you to be a part of our.
Yeah, because the federal government and federal law applies to the federal government. When it says the Congress shall make no law, blah, 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 that applies to the federal government. It does not apply to the states, and it was never supposed to. And if the states thought that, and this is what the Civil War was really fought over, again, rabbit hole, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me, whatever, but my feeling is that if California wants to have liberal abortion laws, I might disagree with it, but that's up to them as a state. It's up to Alabama or Utah to have different laws on abortion. And it should reflect the political culture of the people that live in those places. And I'm sorry, do I think I have the answer for how people should organize themselves politically? I do. I think there's an objectively right way to do, I think everyone should have the right to own a gun, for example. But if there's a state and their people Rhode Island said, we don't want to have guns in our state, I might disagree with that. But politically, the best thing to do, practically and tactically speaking, if you're a proponent of freedom, is have as many sovereign states as you can. Let them have a government that reflects the political culture of the people. And then if you don't like your state, leave. Go to a different state or fight. You can fight and you can control your city and your town, and to some extent your state. You cannot control the federal government. We cannot. The federal government is beyond any of our control. We cannot control it anymore. And And this is,
that is, for me, that is the critical context of today that should be influencing any liberty lovers who are upset about this abortion thing and they feel like women's rights are being cheated. To me, today, when Eastman gets arrested, gets a warrant served and gets his phone taken, and like all the Trump lawyers and supporters are being arrested, and the J6 people are in prison with no due process in solitary confinement, like literally being tortured, political prisoners, when, you know, all the vaccine crap and the mask mandates on planes and the, you know, all the stuff that they've done to us over the last couple of years and how bad things have gotten. And possibly with this election stuff, which I'm not going to mention because my channel might get banned. I don't know what the current rules are. But when you have that situation, who gives a shit about abortion? I mean, I feel like what I want is anything decentralizing at this point. Anything. I think I would even support like dismantling the standing army and making the states have militia. I would even support
100%.
that at this point, because I feel that the federal government has absolutely become out of our control and out of control. And they are the CDC and the FDA and the NIH and all that health shit that they did in the last couple of years, telling us what treatment we can have and can't have, and mandating treatments, and, you know, pushing companies to mandate
outlawing treatments that your doctor
outlawing
prescribes.
treatments, and pressuring social media to censor any opposition to their, honestly, you guys, this is out of control. So decentralize that shit. So if the states have to decide about abortion, I'm fine with that. And I hope that everything gets pushed back to the states. I want the states more powerful. I want the states appointing senators. I don't want them elected anymore by popular vote. Like, I want everything back to the way it was. I want states to be sovereign. I don't want the Department of Education sending money to the states. I'm done with this.
And Medicare and Medicaid sending hundreds of billions of dollars to state hospital associations so that they can then force federal policy onto the states.
Can double and triple their freaking taxes for all I care, and transfer all this shit to the states where we can do something about it and control it. Mm-hmm. It is out of control. The deep state is out of control. The FBI is out of fucking control. The FBI is arresting political opponents of the current regime. That is happening. And people give a shit about a woman's right to abort a baby that she like, you had to have sex to get pregnant in the first place. So it's not like this thing is just happening to you, you know? and they're, you know what I'm saying? Like, take some fucking responsibility, go local, pass the laws you need locally. I don't understand this obsession. I felt the same way about gay marriage. All of these gay people were so excited about gay marriage to the detriment of all their other freedoms. They had to have Obama because of gay marriage, even though he was against it, but now he's for it, you know, all this other BS. But anyway, the Democrats were the ones pushing gay marriage, which is fine. I'm for that. But it's not my priority. And I don't care that you're in love and you want to get married. Go to the states were passing things. There was, you know, civil arrangements, things like that. It was happening in the states. You didn't need a federal law, and you sacrificed freedom to fucking marry federally, to have a federal, like, Supreme Court decision about marrying as gay people. I find this prioritizing sex issues and marriage and abortion over literally free speech and like sovereignty over your body. And
well, it goes to show you that that's not, like, the people that are saying my body, my choice. The fact that they were the ones who were pushing the vaccine mandates and who support the FDA and the NIH and these world health cabals that have one size fits all policies to suppress you and to tell you what you can do to your body and suppress free speech and so on and so forth. The fact that those are the people that are now saying we want to enshrine this federal right to abortion or whatever, that tells you that that's not what this is about.
Right.
Because nothing's going to change in California, New York, Illinois, like these blue states. that have abortion laws, nothing's going to change in those states.
So why are these people freaking out? Why are they freaking out?
I think what this is, and I think Tucker had a great monologue, this is really a movement, because I don't think they believe in bodily autonomy. I think that's bullshit. I think this is really a movement against the idea of having a family and against the idea of having a baby, like having families.
Do you believe so this was a monologue that was, okay, so let's see, what day is it today? It's Tuesday. It's
cultural Marxism,
Thursday. So it's his Monday night monologue. He said that he didn't say cultural Marxism. He said it was corporate.
Yeah, I don't totally agree. I agree with that partially.
Where they just want women to be drones and they don't want women to take maternity leave. They need these office drones.
I don't agree with that.
Okay, completely. So what do you think it is?
Well, I think it's cultural Marxism. I mean, if you look at the protests that are going on, what these women are basically, saying is, did you see some of the signs of like women that are like actually humiliating their own children?
Oh, I saw that. Like the woman said something like, "You get stuck with two like this," or something like that. Just awful.
These are people that really hate.
I'll take her kids.
I think these are people that hate humanity. They hate human life. I think they see that they don't want the population to grow. They see humanity as a blight on nature and the environment, and they see abortion sort of like on demand as a remedy to alleviate them of the consequences of their actions. Again, if you look at the whole essence of Marxism and of the left in general, it's to divorce cause and effect. It's to try and, hey, free healthcare, free education, free housing. We can have energy with no effect on the environment. Everything about them is a wish. It's a wish that reality is not what it is. I don't want to work. I just want someone to give me money, give me food, give me housing. I just want to do art or something like that. I mean, their whole mindset is
funny. They think that under communism, they'll just sit around and do art.
Seriously, like that's it. Like, I just want to do art.
You're going to be like looking for a pigeon in the park to eat for your dinner. That's what you're going to be doing under communism.
So, I mean, their whole MO is to like reject the nature of reality, which requires us to work. It requires us to be productive. It requires us to like go out and reshape nature and do things to survive. And so they want to divorce us from the consequence. In particular, in this instance, I think that the concrete is, if I have sex, I don't want to have children. And I'm sympathetic to abortion up to a certain point for sure, for various reasons. But I think fundamentally, like, this movement really isn't just about bodily autonomy. Otherwise, they wouldn't have argued so vehemently for the vax mandates and everything. I think it's more about their hatred of the nuclear family and of the traditional maternal role as a mother, and of once a mother has a baby, then she has to be a mother and she can't then freely choose what to do with her own career in life.
People have done such a number on women, and this feminism that's really kind of anti-female, where, I mean, you see it where you're supposed to be as much like a man as possible. You're supposed to value what men would value. You're supposed to be okay with promiscuous sex. Women just we're wired differently. I don't know a single one. Oh yeah, it's fine. It's fine that I just had a one night stand and he's like not interested, and I'm not going to call him. I don't need him. Like, that is bullshit. Every girl I know, from when I was young to now that I'm older, talking to younger women today, casual sex is so bad for girls. It's so bad for women. For men, they seem to be able to kind of blow it off, at least to a certain extent. And in the workplace, you see women having to be aggressive. And, I remember when I was working in corporate America, you're wearing dark colors, you're wearing boxy clothes. You have to like be as unfeminine and kind of can't be emotional. You have to, you can't smile a lot and be friendly. which is more of a female kind of trait. And I got to a certain point where I was like, I'm not myself. And I started to just say, I'm going to just fucking be myself. And I wore, open-toed sandaled shoes, and I started getting written up for like not following the dress code. And I would wear like pastels, and I was friendly and making friends with people. And then next thing I know, my cell phone is being tracked because they think I'm being too friendly with people. It was the weirdest, most psychotic thing. And I ended up quitting my last job under that circumstance. So the second I feminized, I was going to be fired. And I worked in a finance department, which is a little more conservative than other departments, but that's kind of how it is. And there's that. And then there's this idea that you get pummeled with it when you're younger and as a young woman. Motherhood will destroy your life. Motherhood is nothing but hard work, a burden, that you're going to get ugly. You're going to lose your body. You're going to be this sweaty, hardworking, raw hand, miserable,
You're submitting to the patriarchy by doing that too.
And you'll be reliant on this man to take care of you. And so you won't have as much personal freedom. And the whole thing is a lie. The whole thing is a lie. And I feel like it's robbing women of things that make us special and make our lives have meaning, more specifically, like motherhood and like being feminine, being friendly, and being that social glue for groups of people. This is our role, and this is what we're sort of built for. And psychologically, it's very fulfilling. It doesn't mean you have to stop doing anything else. It does reprioritize your life. But most of the women I know, once the kids are kind of out of that early stage, they get back into something that they're interested in. And frankly, if they pick right and they have a husband who's a good provider, they end up doing stuff that's way more interesting and passionate for them than they would have like otherwise. So they might be working in charities or working in the school, or maybe they're writing, or they're doing something a little more entrepreneurial, more social and entrepreneurial than they would have otherwise done if they'd just gone to school and gone to work and never had kids and not had that husband to support you. And I don't know very many women who don't have supportive husbands these days either. It's very, very archaic and weird to have a husband who's like, you're going to stay home and you can't write that book you want to write. We've got kids that you need to take care of, even though they're off in school. Clean the house. What are you doing? Make me a sandwich. Like, I don't know anybody who's got a husband like that.
You don't know my wife.
Okay.
but the fact of being a 50, 55, 67-year-old woman, not having any children, not having any family in your life.
Right.
And what you've had a great career. Okay. I'm sorry. Like, it's hard to see this when you're in your 20s or in your teenager. But as you get older and you reach middle age and beyond, the meaning of family in your life really takes on a really big importance. And I don't think no one's
for men and women, by the way,
for
right?
men and women.
Yes.
And no one's equipped to fully understand or appreciate that at 20, which is why you need society, and you need society's mores and morality and these teachings and this wisdom to be put out into society, into the culture, to say that is okay, that is good.
Yeah,
it's fine to want a family.
Right.
This is what life is about. Like, because hey, and I had people who told me when I was 20s and 30s who were older that didn't have families, who said, because I was like, hey, I want to be like you. I want to be like 50 or 60 and just still going to bars and stuff. And they're like, no, you don't want to be me. And I had to really think about it, but I got that wisdom from older people. I wouldn't have known that. I would have been like, nah, I'm never doing that. I don't want to have kids.
But now,
whatever.
Doug, at some age, men have a little more time. At some age, would you have been looking around and going, I think I'd like kids now. I think I'd like a wife now.
Yeah, for sure. Because I got to a point through my 20s and stuff where that life got old. I mean, I was like,
right.
you're going to bars, or you're going out with your friends, or you're
Dating,
partying, and
this
you're
endless
dating,
dating
and
crap.
you're going through
Yeah.
this process over and over again. And it's like, what am I doing this for? Like, is it just to
Right.
try and have as much sex as possible? Are you really trying to find someone? And if you are trying to find someone, once you're trying to find someone, there's a whole set of rules about that I had to learn about. What does it mean to find someone? Are you looking for the perfect person and you should wait till you're 100 years old to find that? Or
what's a good wife? Is she hot and sexy, or is she cute and maternal?
Yeah, like these are all trade-offs then that you're starting to weigh. And this wisdom, this is not coming from the culture. What's coming from the culture, especially on the female side, is, hey, women, be more like men.
It's exactly right. Defeminize yourself, have goals and values that are manly. And it really just strips us of our value and our identity. And then you get plumped and you get dropped off in your 50s. You were cute. Then maybe you got married, you didn't have kids, and now you're older and there are a lot of cute girls and your husband's still attractive to them. You're not, and you don't have a family. He has no reason to be with you. Now you're like going through menopause and you're a bitch for 5 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, family also glues you together with people in a way that creates a lifelong, it's just that value of family where you know that you can be a bitch for 5 years. And I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But ladies out there, go get some estrogen. No, I'm just kidding. I just think that it is even more tragic for women because men, it's happening to men now with this toxic masculinity stuff, but women have been stripped of their identity and their value and their meaning as females, which isn't everything about you, but it's something about you. And it's especially tragic for us because there's a ticking clock on when we can have families. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of women these days are really struggling with fertility, and then they end up waiting too long and, not being able to do it. And I almost fell into that category. I almost did. I didn't have anybody wiser warning me or advising me about anything. And, related to children and family. Most of the people that I knew were in the same boat. These, females who were very career driven and thought that kids would too dramatically change their lives and make them unfun.
Totally. And that's the message you get, is like having a family is not only a problem, but it's also submission to this patriarchy, and you're giving up your life rather than taking it.
I got to be honest, I went through a transition. I was older when I then lost my independence, so to speak. And I became part of this unit with this child and her father, and had to depend on someone else for my livelihood, which it was hard for me for a couple of years. That was a mental transition that it took me time to get over. And I'm very introspective and self-aware. So I think it was easier for me than it would be for other women like me. But when you live that long and you take care of yourself well, and you put everything on your independence and autonomy as being kind of the most important thing, it's hard to sort of give up some decision-making and give up, there's an insecurity to not making your own money.
Well, and this is and it's a false alternative that I think we went from, like, women really being, just like pawns of men, and, like the traditional females from hundreds of years ago. And we went from that to throw all that out, and now to completely skew the concept of family and maternity, as if to accede to any of that, or to desire any of that, is to then, accept the Handmaid's Tale or something.
Yeah.
And this is a false alternative. If
you have a good man, you are in a good situation. It is not like, I am endlessly supported. I can do what I want. You know what I mean? It's go find a good man, ladies. And then you don't have, there's no danger of this. And even a man who's a little mixed up can be convinced. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, you might have to persuade, but that's what you have to do when you work with other people. But, working with another person, you get a lot of benefits from that too. You get family, and when things happen, you can lean on them, and you're not alone. So,
another proof of this idea of where cultural Marxism is coming from is this drag queen thing where, they've said the traditional role as a woman, they've thrown that out, right? They've said, well, if you're a woman, you should be more like a man, but yet they're now adopting men that want to look like women. And how do these men that become drag queens dress? They dress caked in makeup. They're like hideous caricatures of this female role. And it's almost a projection, because what they're saying, like, this is what I think of as real femininity. It's almost a joke. It's a cartoon version of femininity where you're all made up in this ridiculous costume. And
well, if we're equal, if sex doesn't matter and we're all the same and women should act like men and have values like men, then the only difference is the dress and the makeup. The only difference is the costume. But, that isn't true. And I think this gender fluid stuff reflects a similar error in that there's a brain chemistry and there, you know what I'm saying? We're different.
Just donning a costume is not it. It's the whole process and growth of being a woman and a girl from a very young age and all the things you guys go through.
But it's also chemically like, when I had a baby, I don't know, that just filled this hole in me that it's hard to describe. I didn't even know it was there. I just became this more serene. Oh my gosh. Pierre. You know what I think he's barking at? There's this prism here throwing rainbows. Just a second. He's like, rainbows. Is this pride? Is this pride, Mom?
Yeah, you're barfing pride out into the room.
Come here. Oh, he's so cute. Oh.
Hi, Pierre.
Oh,
there he is.
He's so cute. Hey, you. Shh. So, okay, what was I saying? Because I wanted to make this point that,
Chemical.
It was so fulfilling to me in a way that it's hard to even really understand. And I really think it was kind of primal. Something I was completely unaware of until that hole was filled, and it continues to be that for me. I was angsty and sort of a malcontent, and I knew that about my personality, and I just was like that. And then I had a baby and I've never been like that since. So there was something going on chemically that was making me unhappy. Or just, it's hard to describe. And I think I've talked to a lot of my female friends about that, and they had a similar experience. So I don't think men go through that. I don't think men have that same missing part that when they become a parent, it's filled.
Oh, I think it's different. I think that the level of the sense of responsibility.
Yeah. It centers you, right? It gives you it centers and makes your purpose more clear. I think that's how I felt about it. It was like my purpose in life is so much more clear to me now that I don't feel like I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Because there's certain things you have to do as a parent, unlike when you're single and you say, I don't know if I really want to go into work today or whatever. When your own baby is crying or whatever, you don't think should I really go tend to that? You just get up and your body does it.
Let me write a list of pros and cons. let me see if that's my priority right now.
Yeah, it's really a primal sense of, and I think it does give you meaning. It gives a sense of responsibility and creates a hierarchy
Yeah.
of values around which, you're placing your family and your career and everything else. But I think it's totally different for men though. And this is natural. It should be different for men. It should be different for women. And the idea that we've got these institutions of higher learning churning out absolutely not just bad advice, but advice that's so
nasty
wrong
advice.
and so
Advice
detrimental to female psychology. That it's evil because it's destroying them. It's destroying them mentally.
Well, and now
causing mental illness.
And now for men, this, if you're a white male, you're just literally evil. So you better become gender fluid in order to, this is what I read the other day, that girls are becoming gender fluid because they're white. And they're trying to get some kind of diversity point to be in again, because they're so out, because they're white, they're worthless. And this is the message they're getting.
Yeah, it's how you gain value and currency now, especially as a teenager.
They feel immoral. They feel bad.
Guilty. Yeah.
And so if they can become trans, they can become good. It's their way to become good. And that is the sickness of this trans indoctrination, and also the the toxic masculinity. This whole it doesn't matter what your sex is thing, and this whole, it's identity politics in general, the race stuff. But speaking of the costume, one thing I've noticed culturally, maybe we can connect this to the trans costume, which, by the way, didn't used to bother me. It used to just be this entertaining thing that you could go see once in a while. And I didn't really give a crap. And I thought it was fun. And sometimes girls on their bachelorette parties would go to these gay clubs and see a drag show. And it was funny and fun. And they often did comedy. And,
well, when you bring it into your kids' elementary school, that's a little bit different. Like, me and my friends have gone to strip clubs for bachelor parties and stuff. Right. I wouldn't bring my 5-year-old to a strip club.
I thought anything goes. Well, so the thing I've noticed culturally is that women culturally are given an alternative. One is the Kim Kardashian overly slutty sort of you dress like a stripper, basically. Yeah. Maybe, her claim to fame was her sex tape. Sex tapes are fine. Sleeping around is fine. Wearing, literally wearing stripper shoes with the feet, the platform toes with the high heels, wearing very skimpy clothing, caked on makeup, fake hair, everything fake.
Symbol of independence and from the patriarchy. You're on your own. You're independent.
That's one way. The Cardi B being like popular at all. And she's not the only ex-stripper who's like a superstar, and all the sort of more straight ahead superstars like Beyonce and stuff have started dressing like strippers over the last 5 years.
Oh, Katy Perry and Hannah Montana, whatever her name is, Miley Cyrus and all that.
And so you have that side. And then the other option is the very androgynous, piercing, ugly. Like, how can I uglify myself, cut my hair, be very unfeminine, basically androgyny, but worse than that, kind of ugly androgyny. Not even like I want to look like a boy, but I want to look hideous. And the more ugly and hideous I look, the better. And this sort of celebration of zits and fat. And so those are the sort of ideals that girls are given, and they're choosing one side or the other. If you want to be feminine, you choose this slutty, over-sexualized femininity. And then if you don't want to be, then you have to choose ugly and androgynous and probably trans and gender fluid.
And so that's a rejection of ideals, because it's shitting on the traditional ideal of, the Marilyn Monroe, the beautiful movie star woman kind of ideal. And it's a rejection of it. So as long as you're rejecting that ideal, from a postmodern perspective and turning it on its head. So instead of a wholesome virgin, you're going to be a slut that's not, married, that's single, independent of any man, who flaunts her own sexuality and can do whatever she wants. So she's sticking it to the man because she's not going to be she's not the property of any man.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you are asexual and you're androgynous and you're ugly, you're not making yourself appealing to men. So you're sticking it to the man. You're saying, I'm not going to pretty myself up to titillate you or to attract you. I don't need you. I don't need a man. I'm just going to be whatever I want. So as long as you reject the conventional standard of beauty, which is appealing to men and would make you appealing to men, then you're good. You're part of the feminist movement. And this is a complete and utter rejection of standards. And it's a rejection of, I think it's a rejection of femininity. It's a rejection of nature. And it's a false alternative.
How is slutty stripper stuff a rejection of femininity?
Because I don't think femininity properly is
slutty.
Is slutty. What's the other word for slutty? Like promiscuous? Yeah, I don't think tradition, like, to me, the beautiful woman, the ideal beautiful woman is someone who's beautiful and hard to attain. You have to live up to the ideal. You have to be someone who's attractive to her, because, everyone knows, like, okay, if I called up Marilyn Monroe or Sophia Loren and said, hey, this is Doug, you want to go out with me? Like, I have to be special. I have to be a special man to attract a woman like that. You have to be the president of
the United States.
And
the handsome president of the United States.
Yeah. And I think because a true feminine kind of heroine is looking for the hero, right? She's kind of looking for a great man, someone who's great for her too. So that's where this false alternative comes in. So to be a promiscuous and be a slut, you're basically saying, I have no standards. I don't care. I'll just do whatever I want. And again, that's a rejection of standards on the male side, because you're saying, I don't care about the man. I don't care. The man doesn't have to be a hero or something to me. I'll just sleep with whoever I find attractive that day. Or someone who pays me. Because if I'm a stripper, sex is a transaction. Right. It's just transactional. It's not even, because to say that you're going to hold out and you're going to save yourself, and wait for a good man is also an acceptance of a standard. You're saying there's a standard of man that I'm attracted to. So there's a standard of man. Some men are better than others. So by rejecting that and just saying this is all transactional, there is no standard. If a man wants to screw me, he can pay me. Or if I feel like screwing him, it's anything goes. So again, it's all the postmodern. This is all postmodernism.
It's postmodernism because it's a rejection of standards, or is that it?
Values, yeah, and of reality. Because reality really imposes these standards. These aren't arbitrary society, like the left would argue these are all arbitrary.
That's what they do argue.
Standards that men just came up with these rules.
And it's progressive to get rid of these arbitrary standards. That's their whole take.
Yes. It's progressive. Like, these are just arbitrary rules that men came up with to maintain their power and their privilege. No, women have to be this. And if you're not this, we're going to crush you. The patriarchy is going to crush you if you don't, bring me coffee and bring me a sandwich and do what I say. And there was some argument to that. Like, obviously women were oppressed in various ways for long periods of time. And that's definitely changed. But this is a total rejection of standards altogether. This is a false alternative. This is.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, okay, so you have a situation where women were oppressed and treated badly and frequently abused. And then we get some autonomy and the pendulum kind of swings the other way, where now people are rejecting their own femininity. That I don't really understand. The level of where you get to the point where you're, hey, I'm a woman. Women are mistreated. Let me be manly. And I guess it's like, hey, I can be just as good as you, men. And what's sickening now and what's making people sick of it, he sent me this video this morning. Fed up. We're fed up with this. We're fed up with that. It was some woman speaking.
Carrie Lake.
That wasn't Carrie Lake.
Yeah.
No. This was some woman in Wyoming. Carrie Lake in Arizona. That's different. Maybe you didn't send this to me. Maybe someone else.
Let's agree to disagree.
Maybe I should find it and play it for you. It was really good.
San Diego means whale vagina.
And so I'm going to look for it, Doug, because I swear it was so good.
Yeah, I might be wrong. So you're saying the rejection of femininity, though.
But now we're to the point where women are rejecting their own nature and what makes them happy. And you're doing things like what's making people sick of it is like the cake to celebrate your abortion. And that I'm glad I had 20 abortions. There's a backlash to this culturally because that's disgusting. It's despicable. It shouldn't be something that you're proud of or happy about. If you have to do it, you have to do it. And I support your right to have to do it, but nobody should be celebrating this because motherhood is fucking divine. And I mean that as a secular person. I'm saying it is the greatest gift to you as a woman to be a mother. And it's the best thing I've ever done. And to belittle that and to make it like no problem that I've just ended this possibility of motherhood. It's fine. In fact, fuck that fetus, like it's just, it really grates on me and most people.
It's celebrating tragedy.
It is. It's like you looked at a murder and you're like, yay. And I'm not saying it's a murder, but maybe I can think of another example. You've looked at a tornado wiping out, a whole town and you're like, woohoo, let's have a cake and some champagne.
Yeah.
These are values being destroyed. And especially if you've had promiscuous sex or you've been raped and you're pregnant and so if you're in a loving marriage and you accidentally get pregnant, you're probably going to have the baby. Because why wouldn't you? Because motherhood is great and your marriage is solid. And of course you would have that baby. That's a blessing and a gift. Even if it would cause problems, you would find a way. Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe, some women, they've had 5 kids. It's 10 years later. They accidentally get pregnant. Okay. We're not going through this again. Okay, fine. But that's really the rare thing. Most women getting abortions, they're young. They're with a loser. They're with someone who doesn't love them. They're having sex with someone who doesn't care about them. They've gotten pregnant and they just need to get rid of it. And that's fucking sad. It's sad and pathetic in every way. You are giving yourself up to this loser. You're probably depressed and miserable about it. You're clinging to some guy who doesn't care about you because you're sexually active with him. And the whole thing is gross and sad. And we're pushing this on girls like it's some great thing. And all it does is make them depressed and miserable. So I feel like the backlash is long overdue. I hope it doesn't become this creepy, the other side of it, but I think it will. I think we're going to end up with some kind of overcorrection in the other way.
I don't think so. But
you don't? Why not?
No.
Because we've evolved, because the right has evolved enough to know that women deserve full rights and
I don't think there's any putting that genie back in the bottle.
Just like you wouldn't like re-enslave Black people or something.
I mean, there's a certain level of human evolution that takes place societally, morally, and so on, that and the standards change, and it would just be hard to go back through that without an apocalypse. Like someone like yourself who understands properly, I think, the role of being a woman and wants to be one, and it celebrates her real femininity not a caricature of it. But, like if the father said, hey, go, you're not going out of the house, you're not going to drive a car or something like that. I mean, if my wife told me I couldn't drive a car and she was going to do all the stuff, then I actually might accept that. But for, that's never going to happen again. I mean, I can't see that happening again. It's certainly the norm, though, in most societies and in Asia and the Middle East, and those places are, a few hundred years behind in this regard. But we got to get from where the West is at to where like the Taliban is at. Can we reassess? Because this is the false alternative that we've been offered.
Yeah. I mean, let's just have a civilized, enlightened society where people are reasonable, where people have autonomy and self-responsibility, and they can make some of these decisions locally with their own communities. And I don't know.
Well, it's maybe a lot of it's just accepting reality.
Thinking.
Well, it is. Well, no, it's not, because we're accepting reality. The facts are men and women are different. They're biologically different. And we've evolved a certain way in nature. And to be a rational person is to recognize that, to understand it, and then to live your life in accordance with it. And to, in order to be happy, you have to come to grips with what those things are. What the left does is it fights reality. It doesn't like reality. It hates reality. And it's constantly fighting against it. And it's a rejection. I think progressivism is a rejection of how things really are, that some people are better than others. Some people have better character. People do not have equal outcomes because some people work harder than others. People have to reshape the earth in order to live. Like we don't just stand there and grapes and oranges fall into our mouth from the sky. I mean,
isn't it funny that the people who push the identity politics are the ones evading identity or ignoring real identity? Just a thought.
Actual identity, yeah, because they project. They see identity everywhere. They see these categories and these intersectional categories, and then, which is to their credit, they see that their people are different and we group them differently. And then they project the idea that all these groups and all these things aren't different for a reason.
Right. Okay.
Like there's men, there's women, there's everybody's different. We've got all these different people and races and ethnicities and cultures and all these different things going on, but they're all the same, or they should all be the same, and they should all have equal outcomes. And whatever you think doesn't mean there should be any consequences to that ideology or that religion or that culture's values. There should be no differences. So that's a total bizarre projection. It's utopian and it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And that's why it causes so much strife and problems. Okay, so I'm going to end the show with a joke. My daughter told me this joke this morning in the car, and then I want to say something about the joke. Okay. What's a fly without wings?
What?
A walk.
I like it.
So she tells me this joke, and of course I'm thinking like super abstractly. I'm like, this is why words, like without the importance of words and definitions, humor would not be possible. That is it's a low level joke that shows how important it is to know what the word walk is and what the word fly is. And if you didn't understand those words, if they didn't have clear meanings, that joke would have no humor. And if you take that up the chain abstractly, I think a lot of humor is wordplay humor. A lot of humor goes away if the left gets their way of just making words meaningless and have multiple meanings and or no meaning, I guess. And if that's what it does to humor, I feel like it's just a really basic example that shows the importance of words and definitions and how what's going on in your brain, how words matter a lot to what's going on in your brain, even the triggering of a laugh,
Mhm.
which is automatic. You know what the word fly means, you know what the word walk means. And you have this automatic response, right? Because you know the definitions of those words. It's very clear.
Mhm.
If you muddy that at a higher level, which is what's happening, there won't be any more jokes. And imagine what else you lose. If you're losing jokes, like what other processes,
You lose meaning.
what other automatic things going on in your brain besides a laugh or connection? And humor is when you connect something and it's a surprise, that, this wordplay type humor. So anyway, that joke's hilarious, but I feel like it really demonstrated the importance of definition. And if it can be demonstrated on such a simple level, imagine what it means for your thinking on a much more complex level. So it is important to know what a woman is and to have that be a fixed definition, not just for the rights of women, but for thinking.
Cognition.
For cognition.
Like, how do you make sense of the world? How do you, much less have meaning? I mean, you can't exist without that. And this is what they're subverting.
Right. So on that note, thanks for joining us this week. Let us know what you think in the comments. We like to get your comments, and we'll definitely read them all and talk about them if they're interesting or funny. Just kidding. But anyway, we'll probably do next week. I'll be back from my trip, and I think I can convince Doug to do a last minute podcast. So everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
It's filled with satire and fun. It's been the demise of bad ideas, and we'll know what's right when she's done. So download this free podcast now and give perspectives you may lack. It's concise and right and achieves world peace, guaranteed all your money back. Last time, ready?